There was a man at the airport, and he bought himself a coffee and a bag of small mini muffins, and he was looking for a place to sit down where he could enjoy his little snack, and it was very busy at that time. But he found a table where just one man was sitting, and he was thinking, I probably can sit across from him. The man who was already sitting there, thank you, man who was already sitting there he looked Asian, and so he didn't understand the language that this guy was speaking, and so he's just like, can I sit here? Just sign when, okay, sit down. Okay, so the man sat down and put his jacket down, put his bag down, his backpack, his suitcase, everything unpacked, and sat down finally, enjoying a sip of his coffee, grabbing the bag of mini muffins and eating the first mini muffin. It's like, wow, it's a really good mini muffin. Puts the bag back down. Then he sees how the Asian man sitting across, just reaches over, grabs the bag of mini muffins, takes out a muffin, smiles, puts the bag down again, and starts to eat the muffin. The guy can't believe what he has just seen. But then he wasn't sure. Maybe it's a cultural thing. You got to be careful these days. Do you say something? You not say something? It's like, I don't want to offend the guy, and also don't speak the language. So let's just take the next muffin. So he did take the next muffin, and then put the bag right by the edge of the table with his arm in front of it to protect it. Okay? Enjoying the next mini muffin. The Asian man sitting across reached over the table. Can you believe it? Grabbed the bag again, took out another mini muffin, put it in the middle of the table, smiled, and started to eat. The guy can't believe it. He's done it twice. A muffin thief in the middle of Terminal 2. That can't be real. But again, he didn't want to say anything, and maybe also thought, like, maybe the guy's just not quite there, like, I don't want to offend him. And so then the Asian man realized it's time for him to go to his flight. And so he picks up his jacket, takes his bag and everything, and then takes again the bag that's sitting in the middle of the table. There's one muffin left. He breaks it in two, leaves one muffin on the table, takes the other one, eats it, smiles, waves, says goodbye, goes to his flight. The man sitting there says, I'm not touching that half muffin, you donut thief. You probably have COVID, you're full of infection. I'm not touching it. And then he realizes it's time for him to go to his flight, and so he puts his jacket back on, grabs his backpack, turns to his suitcase, and realizes on top of his suitcase is sitting his bag of mini muffins. So he was complaining that this guy was stealing the donuts, when in fact he was sharing his muffins, his muffins. How's that for a start into this subject for today? On generosity, yes, you can clap for that story. It's not my story, but it's a clap. Anyways, so we are talking today about generosity, about the heart of sharing. We are in the middle of a series through the Gospel of Mark. We call it All Eyes on Jesus. And today we're going to talk about generosity. And it's an interesting subject to talk about. There are studies that show that actually when you are generous, you are happier in life. Did you know this? There's chemicals in your brain like dopamine and oxytocin and all those. I'm not expert with this, but they give you a happy mood. They boost your joy. And when you are generous, when you are sharing, all those chemicals, they start to kick in. Jesus knew that as well. And he actually said in Acts chapter 20, you can see this on the screen, what Jesus said. He says, it is more blessed, what does it say? It's more blessed to give than to receive. It's more blessed, you're more happy when you give than when you receive. Now, we think the opposite, don't we? We always think, well, if I have this, then I will be happy. If only I have that, then I will be happy. We think when we receive, receiving will make us happy. Jesus says, no, it's not about the receiving, it's about giving. That will actually make you really happy. The opposite or the antidote to our greed is generosity. Maybe you want to write this down, this sentence on the screen. Generosity keeps the things I own from owning me. Generosity keeps the things I own from owning me. God is not anti-owning stuff. God is not anti-wealth or possession, but there's a danger that these things can take over and they can start to own us. And generosity is the antidote to your greed or to your stinginess, okay? Now, one of the things I love about Mosaic is that you are a very, very generous church. It's true. This is a very generous church. And so many of you, you've made it a habit. It's just part of who you are, that you are generous with the blessings God has given you, and you're happy to share it with other people, happy to share it with this church family. It's amazing. And others of you, maybe you're not quite there yet, but you are warming up to the idea of generosity, which is also great. And I think all of us, every one of us in this room, we would say, like, I desire to be generous. Is that probably fair? Is that the common denominator? We're not the same level of generosity, if there is a level, but we all desire to be generous. Nobody wants to be a stingy, miserable, moody person. No, I want to be generous people are happy people. Yes, I want to be that. I want to learn how to do that. But maybe you've had thoughts like I had where you said, I want to be generous, but I can't afford it at the moment. If only I would have a little bit more, savings in my bank account, or a little bit more income, or the rent would go down again. This whole thing with the inflation just makes it a bit difficult at the moment. I can't really afford to be generous. Anybody had that thought? I know I have. Just some of you are honest. Good. Okay. Others, thanks, Joy. Others of you maybe you have a good income, maybe you have some savings, but you're looking at what's happening in the world and the energy crisis and inflation, and then you're saying, I'm waiting not for more money, I'm waiting for more certainty. Once I kind of know how things will play out, I can be generous again. At the moment, it's just really shaky, and therefore, I got to really be wise about this. And I think I can relate to all of these thoughts, guys, because I've had them as well recently. Like all of those thoughts are real thoughts, but we can learn to be generous from a woman that we meet in the Gospel of Mark in chapter 12. Okay, so we are in this series through the Gospel of Mark today in chapter 12. If you have your Bibles, you can open that up. Also, if you have message notes on your chair, maybe you can read along there or on the screen. Last week, we were already in chapter 12, and we've talked about how in this chapter, Jesus, he has kind of face-to-face confrontation with some of his opposition. There were the Pharisees, there were the scribes, the teachers of the law, the Herodians, and they all kind of team up with this quite aggressive Q&A they have with Jesus. They asked him all kinds of questions. He's brilliant in how he answers all these questions. There's a verse where it says, after this answer, no one dared to ask him any more questions. That's pretty cool, because he was so wise. But then, like these opposing people, these groups of people, they didn't agree with his teachings. They were jealous of his popularity. They were afraid of his influence. That was their problem with him. And now here's what Jesus says in chapter 12, verse 38. He says, watch out. He's talking to his disciples. Watch out, guys, for the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes, like people in Friedrichshain maybe are walking around in flowing robes. I don't know. This is interesting there. And they like to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor in banquets. They devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely. Let's pause right here. Remember, Jesus is saying this in the temple in Jerusalem, which really is the headquarters of the Pharisees, okay, of the teachers of the law. They're around everywhere. Wherever you look, they're walking around with their long robes, kind of trying to be important. And Jesus doesn't mince his word, does he? He says, hey, watch out for these guys. But really, watch out for these guys. They are a threat to you. They are not what they seem. They are dangerous. You got to stay away from them. You got to keep your guard up. They are religious hypocrites. They are running after the wrong things. Quite courageous, isn't it? No political correctness for Jesus in this situation. He just said what was on his heart. And he's calling them hypocrites. We got to understand in the Greek, in the ancient Greek times, the Greeks, they had these theater plays. And the way they would do that is was maybe a play with, in the play there were like 20 different roles, but they only had a handful of actors. And so one actor would play several roles in the same play. The way they would do that is they would go off stage, put on a mask in front of their face, so you know, okay, now he is this person. And he walks up, does his thing, goes back off, takes another mask, plays another role, okay? The word for actor in the Greek is the word hypokritos, okay, where we get the word hypocrite from. Somebody who's wearing a lot of masks. And Jesus is saying, these guys are fake. They are wearing a mask. Don't be impressed with this facade. They are playing, they are acting, they are pretending, but really behind their facade, there's someone else. Let's put these verses up again, and let's look at what Jesus is saying about these teachers of the law. He's saying they walk around, can you put them up again? They walk around in flowing robes, which means they want to be perceived as rich and as important, okay? He's saying they want to be greeted with respect by everyone. Really what was happening is wherever they showed up, whether in the temple or in the city, wherever they showed up, people stood up from their seat and they were greeting them and saying, Rabbi, Master, nice to see you, sir. Like, that's kind of the respect they wanted. They wanted the most important seats in the synagogue, which the way the synagogue was set up is there was obviously the area where the congregation was sitting, and then there were chairs in the front facing the congregation where the teachers of the law would sit to see the people and to be seen by the people. That was more important even, okay? That's where they wanted to sit. And also when there was a banquet, a dinner, they wanted to sit at the important seats. Like remember, this was an honor-shame culture, and they said, we want to sit next to the host, next to the master of the ceremony, where the important conversations are happening. That's where we need to sit, not at the end of the table, the seat of shame. No, we want to have the seat of honor. And then it also says they are devouring widows' houses, which is, I looked it up, it's a bit of an idiom at the time, what Jesus was using here, and he's saying they rip people off unashamedly. They rip people off. We got to remember that the teachers of the law, they were half theologian and half lawyer, because they were representing the law. And so they weren't just involved in religious stuff, they were also involved in all kinds of civil matters, including things about money. And they always tried to get their own gain out of it. That's what Jesus is saying. And then also for show, they are praying lengthy prayers, which means they're trying to be impressive with their spirituality and with how holy they seem to be. And on the surface, when we look at this list, I don't know about you, I'm kind of rolling my eyes at them, and I'm going, these Pharisees, these hypocrites, I'm so glad I'm not like them. Let's look at this list again. I actually have just a few words written down. It's like, what is it that greedy people run after? Because when we look at it, if we just rephrase it a little bit, maybe this is going to start to hit home. Let's peel the onion here. What is he saying? They had an unhealthy emphasis on fashion and appearance, which means they were craving attention. Oh, we would never do that. No? Okay. They were obsessed with respect and fame and status, which means they were craving honor. Right? They had what I call the peacock factor. Like, hey, look at my feathers. Come on, respect me. Right? They desired places of power and prestige in the synagogue, which means they were craving influence. Okay? They had a strong sense of pride where they wanted to sit. They craved superiority. It's a weird word. Who came up with that? Superiority. It's this thing about, I sit over here, you sit over there, right? They were greedy for money and wealth. They were craving riches. And also they were showing off their spirituality, which means they were craving admiration. They were craving to be envied. And you know what? When we just change the language here a little bit, suddenly this description of hypocritical people starts to look a lot like me. And at least a couple of you. But definitely looks like me. Yeah? And by the way, Jesus is not saying that any of these things on the list are wrong things. But he's saying don't run after them. Be careful with them. You think they give you life? They don't. And also be careful. Have your guard up when you are around people who are running after these things. Okay? Now in verse 41, the story continues. Jesus, after he said all that, he sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put, and he watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Let's pause right here again. So Jesus, he sat down, he was teaching all day, was debating all day in the temple, and now he's tired. And he sat down in an area at the temple where you were actually allowed to sit down, kind of in more the outside of the temple, where people were bringing their offerings. And I assume there were some benches or kind of some area where people used to sit in the temple. And I love actually what's happening here is that Jesus is doing some people watching. How many of you love, like me, you love the activity of people watching? It's surprisingly entertaining, isn't it? Come on, have your hand up. Like, yes, you sit in coffee shops, you're supposed to work, but you're just staring in front of your lap, just looking at people, strangers who are oblivious to your stare. But like, you love watching. There's so much you can, if you're observant, you can find out so much about people by just watching them. Like, you can tell, maybe by the clothes they wear or by what kind of car they get out of. Like, you can tell about kind of which economic class people are in, generally. You can tell about maybe their emotional status. Oh, she seems really happy. He seems really depressed, or he's really tired or something, yeah. You can tell about people's personality. Oh, he's a morning person. She's not a morning person. He seems very introverted. She seems very extroverted. You can tell a little bit about it. Also kind of the self-esteem people have, how they carry themselves. You can tell so much about people. You can tell about their manners, whether they know how to behave or whether, you know. It gets really entertaining, doesn't it, when you can also do some eavesdropping. You can start to listen to people's conversations. I love listening to strangers' conversations. Is that weird? Don't pretend I'm the only one. You do it all the time as well. Yesterday, I went to the pharmacy to pick up some stuff. And I know at the pharmacy, you're supposed to kind of keep a discretion space and not listen to people's conversations. But I love in pharmacies is sometimes you just go to pharmacies just to see what's wrong with people. Like, hey, what do you need to survive this life? You know? It's very entertaining. It's like, oh, you have digestive problems. I'm going to stand over here. Okay. You know, it's very interesting. Or when you're sitting on the U-Bahn and people having an argument, like strangers, you're not involved, like I don't care who wins. Like, it's very entertaining though sometimes I'm so upset when I don't know what they're arguing about because I got in too late. Yes, right? The other day, I deliberately did not get off even though it was my stop because I wanted to see who wins. Like, went all the way to Pankow because it was so entertaining to watch them. Anyways. I think you have permission to do that because apparently it's a very Christ-like thing to do, right? Becoming more like Jesus by listening to other people's conversations. So Jesus is doing some people watching, guys, and here's what it says in verse 41. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins, worth only a few cents. Calling his disciples, Jesus said, "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." Now, imagine this scene that Jesus is observing here. In the temple in Jerusalem, there were 13 kind of containers, the kind of the temple treasury. They looked like a big brass instrument, like a trumpet or something. And there were 13 of them, and you could go do designated giving. I want to support this project, and you give your money to the temple treasury. And so all these people, they brought their donations and threw it into these containers. Now here's what we know. They did not have paper money. They did not have checkbooks. They did not have credit cards. They did not have Apple Pay. All they had was coins. What does that mean? Every donation made a noise. Right? Have you ever thought about this? Every donation made a noise, and the large amounts made a lot of noise. And so you could not only watch people give their gift, you could also do eavesdropping. You could also listen to people giving their gifts. And I don't know, can we just imagine this? Let's just say, here's the bucket. Okay? If you are weird like me, and And you would be sitting where Jesus was sitting. Maybe, can I just sit over here? I'm going to sit with you, okay? So I'm going to sit here, watch this happening. Hi guys. And we're starting to play a little game with each other. Like people come, like this guy's coming, and then we're wondering, what are we thinking? Is this going to be a loud one? No, you think? He's the stingy one. Let's see what's happening. Oh, yeah, it's louder than I thought. Yeah. All right, okay. What was the next one? Oh, look at her. She has nice shoes. Like if she can afford nice shoes, then she can give lots of money to. It's all credit card. Oh, yeah. Let's see. Okay, she's praying. She's one of those. Okay. Yes. Okay. Ooh. Oh, yeah. That was very impressive there. This is not going to be much. Look at this poor fella. He doesn't have much. Look at him. Ooh, it's more than I thought. He must have made an inheritance or something. It's like this. Yeah. Is there one more? Oh, look, she came all the way from Nigeria to bring her offering. What do you think? It's a big one? Yeah? Oh, praise the Lord. Well done. Yeah. Awesome. Huh? Good job, guys. Good job. No, I forgot to take 2 for my next illustration, so I'm just gonna. So, it says lots of rich people came and they brought big noise kind of money into the offering. And then it says a widow came. A poor widow came. And we got to understand that at that time, about 2,000 years ago, like even to be a woman wasn't as exciting as it is today. Because you were mostly overlooked, you were mostly kind of ignored, you were mostly pushed to the side, disrespected. And the best thing that could happen to you if you were a woman at the time was to get a husband. Because if you have a husband, you would have somebody who provides for you, who looks out for you, who protects you. But this woman, she's a widow, which means she's lost her provision, she's lost her protection, she's really all by herself, and she does not have any means to look after herself, right? And so if you were playing this game, this guessing game, and a poor widow came, you would say, oh, we can skip this one, because what a waste of time. We know she's not going to bring much. And you kind of continue on with your conversation and all of that, and you stop the game for a moment. But here's what I believe only Jesus heard. Just listen. You hear it? And everybody else ignored it. But Jesus, like, whoa, it hit him like a wave. And he called his disciples and says, did you hear that? Did you hear that just now? And they go, hear what? This gift. Did you hear that gift? And they go like, what? This old lady with her insignificant amount. And Jesus says, no, it wasn't insignificant. All the other ones were giving from what they would never miss. She gave what she could never afford. She gave everything. And now, guys, do you start to see how Jesus actually, I believe these two stories with the teachers of the law and this widow, they belong together. Do you see how Jesus is contrasting these two kind of, these two groups, or well, this widow is not a group, but like these two people groups. Like Jesus is saying, like, these teachers of the law, they are at the top of the ladder. She's at the bottom of society. They are known. They are VIPs. They are celebrities. She is nameless, ignored by everybody. They are all about power and influence. She is the symbol of helplessness and tragedy. They are all about receiving. She's all about giving. They are all about impressing God with what they do for him. She's all about trusting God with the little that she has. They are all about image. She's all about sacrifice. And Jesus says, look at her. She gave not only one, she gave two. Isn't that crazy? She gave two small copper coins. She gave everything. And Jesus points to her and says, imitate her. She's got it. That's my girl. She's figured it out. But keep your guard with them. Watch out for them who are only pretending. Do you see what he's doing? We can learn so much on generosity from this widow. I just want to give you 3 things right now if you want to write them down, and then we'll sing again. The first thing we can learn from her is that generosity is an act of worship. Generosity is an act of worship. Oftentimes we think worship is just about singing songs. I would say singing songs is part of worship. Singing songs can be an expression of our worship, but there can be all kinds of other things that are also expressions of our worship. Like when you serve on children's ministry or on the visuals team, that can be an act of worship. When you share your faith with unbelievers, that can be an act of faith, an act of worship. When you hold on to God in the middle of pain and crisis, that's an act of worship, right? Generosity is an act of worship. Whatever it is that you're doing, if you do it, if your heart motivation is because you do it because you love God, then it's an act of worship. So giving as well. And in Philippians 4, it says, your gifts are a sweet-smelling sacrifice, like a sacrifice that was burned in the temple, a sweet-smelling sacrifice that is acceptable and pleases God. God rejoices over it. He delights in it. This widow, she brought her donation to the temple, not just to fund some kind of ministry projects they had going on in the temple, but she brought it there because it was her expression of worship. As you would do when you go to the temple, you worship. And she knew she didn't have much, but what she had received from God. And so when we do that, when we worship God with our giving, we're saying the same thing. We're acknowledging Jesus, Father, God, everything that we have comes from you, including our income. Yeah, we worked for it, but who gave us the ability to work? It's you, God. Who gave us the energy and the gifts to work? It's you, God. We have that from you. Our health, our energy to do it, we have that from you. The rain and the sunshine that makes things grow, everything that we have is from you. God, you are the giver of life. You are our provider, our sustainer, our enabler. That's you. And so we have so much grace that we've received from you. We can point to so many blessings. We can count our blessings and we can share our blessings. And so we gladly give back from what we have received from you. We give back to you. Does that make sense? So this widow, she had decided in her heart, my poverty will not stop my generosity. She has decided in her heart, my loss will not limit my worship. My loss. That's for somebody here. My loss will not limit my worship. And she brings it to the temple as an act of worship, all that she has. Now these 2 copper coins, I'm not going to use this. I think there's a picture here on the screen of the actual copper coins of what they looked like back then. They were called leptons, okay? They were the smallest money unit that they had at the time. Couldn't go much smaller, it's like our 1 cent piece maybe, yeah? Apparently 128 leptons made up 1 denarius. And 1 denarius was the kind of the day's wage for the average worker. You made 1 denarius per day, 128 leptons. Which means, I did the math, to give 2 leptons was worth 7.5 minutes of your time. Okay, not much, but that's all this woman had. And to society, they looked at her donation and said, okay, 7.5 minutes. That's all you bring. That's how much it was worth to society. To Jesus, her donation was worth eternity. Eternity, because he looked at her heart of worship. Maybe you want to write this down. Generosity honors God, and God honors generosity. Generosity, it honors God, it worships him, but also God delights in it. It's pleasing to him, and he honors it, our generosity. That's why, again, why Jesus pointed to her and not to the teachers of the law as the example to follow, to imitate when it comes to a heart of worship and devotion. Okay? Second thing we can learn from her is generosity is a costly sacrifice. It's a costly sacrifice. Again, she drops her 2 coins, and Jesus, hits him like a wave, and he says, did you see that? Did you hear that? And he says, she gave out of her poverty, and she put in everything. What does that mean? It wasn't the size of the gift that impressed Jesus. It was the sacrifice of the gift that impressed Jesus. Not the size, but the sacrifice. She didn't just give something, she gave everything. When Jesus looks at how much is being thrown in this bucket, he's not looking at how much is actually being thrown in, he's looking at how much stays in our pockets. He's not looking at the amount given, he's looking at the amount that we keep to ourselves afterwards. Does that make sense? So he's not impressed with the sum, he's impressed with the sacrifice, or he's measuring the sacrifice. Maybe you want to write this down. Jesus does not measure generosity by the sum, but by the sacrifice. He does not measure it by the portion or in portion, but in the proportion. In the proportion. Does that make sense what I'm saying? It's too mathematical for you today, isn't it? I don't get it either, but that's what's heavenly math. Let me explain it with another story. In 2 Corinthians 8, there's a passage here where Paul writes this letter, obviously, to the church in Corinth. The church in Corinth was quite a rich church, but they were also quite tight-fisted. And Paul wanted to challenge them to be a bit more generous. And he describes to them, just as an inspiration, another church that is located in Macedonia. Now, this other church in Macedonia was quite a poor church. And what had happened was that there was a famine in Jerusalem, and there were also Christians, brothers and sisters in Jerusalem, and they were really struggling. They were starving. And so Paul went around to all the churches he had planted, and he tried to raise some funds, some money, to be sent to the brothers and sisters in Jerusalem. But he had intentionally skipped this church in Macedonia because he thought, well, they are too poor to give. I don't want to embarrass them to give, so I'm not going to ask them to feel obligated to give anything. But they were quite offended, like, hold on, we want to be part of this as well. And here's what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 8, verse 3, about this church in Macedonia. He says, they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability. How's that possible? Beyond their ability. That's sacrifice, guys. Entirely on their own. They urgently pleaded with us for the privilege, isn't that beautiful, of sharing in this service. They knew this isn't a duty, this is a privilege. This is something not we have to do, but we get to do. Okay? Now, the bank of heaven is not preoccupied with the size of your gift. God, generally speaking, God is rarely impressed with how big something is. God is rarely impressed with size. We are. We're very quickly impressed with size. God isn't. Right? He measures generosity proportionately. So he looks at that woman and says, she gave 2 coins out of 2 coins. That's 100%. Wow, I honor that. What a sacrifice. God looks at the church in Macedonia and says, oh, they were giving beyond their ability. How does it even work? Like, did they like get money from the bank so they can give it to this donation? Like that, how does that even work? Like, what sacrifice? It's sacrifice. I honor that. Okay, number 3, real quick. Generosity is a proof of trust. Generosity is a proof of trust. It says she put in everything, all she had to live on. This word here for to live on is the Greek word bios, which we know from biology, which really means she was giving her entire livelihood. It wasn't that Jesus was saying, oh, look at her. She didn't go to Bonanza's this morning to get a flat white. And the €4 she saved there, she now brought to the offering basket. Well done. I mean, that's kind of nice as well when you do that. But like, it's not like she just kind of didn't pursue her morning luxury and saved some money there to give to the church. No, she gave everything. She gave what she would have needed on that day to provide for her to live. That's the 2 coins, that all she had. And that's what she gave. And this woman was saying, God, I trust you. I'm going to put in my 2 coins. I trust you to provide for me, and you know the best way to provide for me. Maybe a friend will give me some bread today and I'll have to eat. That'll be wonderful. Maybe I'll have to fast today. Maybe I'll get to learn lessons about you in my emptiness. God, you know what's best for me. and I trust in you. That's a proof of trust, isn't it? If you ever want to see the embodiment of someone who is all in, look at that widow. She was all in. In Proverbs 3, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. That's famous words. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. And then a couple of verses later, it says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of your crops, and then your barns will be filled to overflowing. Guys, what I'm trying to say to you today is Jesus is not looking for people who are cool, people who are funny, people who are influential, people who are admired, people who are successful. Jesus isn't looking, that's not his criteria. That's often our criteria. That's not his criteria. Jesus is looking at the heart. And he's looking if our heart trusts him. He's looking to see if we're willing to honor him with our treasure, with that which is most important to us, because we think about wealth all the time, how to get it, how to invest it, how to spend it, how to get more of it. Like that consumes a lot of our time and our thinking. Like, and can we put God first in this? That's what Jesus is looking for here. He's looking for people who are all in with him. And I'm just looking out in this room as well, and like maybe with the first service together, like I know this room is getting fuller, which is exciting. There's maybe like 300, 350 people or so at Mosaic right now, which is great. But when you think about the size of this city, we're not really a big group. Like nobody's noticing us. Like what's 350 people in a city of 3.5 million? Like that's 0.01%. Like that's like we're not really a big group, right? But imagine with me what Jesus could do with 350 people who trust him all the way. Imagine with me what this city would look like if Jesus would find 350 people in this city who are saying, I'm all in. I'm all in. Now let me land with this. This story here is one of those stories in the Bible that doesn't really give us an answer, but it asks us a question. Oftentimes Bible stories, they give us an answer, but sometimes the text actually asks us a question. And the question that is being asked here is very personal for you to think about. What are my 2 copper coins? What are my 2 copper coins? In other words, do think about this, not like right now, but go home with this question and think about it tonight and this next week. What is a thing that I can give? Or what is a thing that I need to give up? What is an area in my life where I struggle to actually trust God and where I don't want him to be first? Maybe it is your money. Maybe for you, a very practical next step is to say, like, you know what, I've been coming to Mosaic for a while. This is my church. I kind of like it here. I'm going to go on the website tonight and find out how I can become a monthly supporter to this church. I want to see how I can, with my contribution, be a part of what God is doing here. I want to help fund it. That would be great, you know. I'm not making this preach, by the way, because the church is in need of money. I think you need this far more than the church needs this. Is that okay? You need this far more, like you need generosity for your own heart, much more than the church would need, like, hey, please help fund. God is not in need of any money. Like he can find ways to fund whatever he wants to do, okay? But for you to say, like, okay, that would be a good next step. I'm going to put God first here, or support this ministry, that, whatever it is. Like maybe it is not about finances so much as it's about time and investing your talent into the church, or in some areas like, hey, I'm going to get involved with the visuals team or the welcome team or some kind of team. I'm just going to give some of my time and give it to God, like put him first in my time management and with my talent as well. I don't want to just use it for my own sake. I want to honor him with it. Maybe it's about hospitality that you're saying, hey, we're starting new small groups. I can start a small group in my home. I can show hospitality in my home. Or maybe it's about some connections that you have, some influence that you have, where like, hey, maybe I can actually shine a light here. Maybe I can talk to people about Jesus here. Just think about this. What are your 2 copper coins? I'm going to ask you to stand and we're going to pray.